You think airline meals in the 1970s were just peanuts and pretzels? Think again. Before cost-cutting stripped the skies of culinary ambition, flying meant white tablecloths, silver cutlery, and meals that rivaled fine restaurants at 35,000 feet. Let's dig into 30 airline meals from the 1970s they'll never serve again. Lobster thermidor was once the crown jewel of first-class airline dining, representing an era when carriers competed fiercely to offer luxury at 35,000 feet. Flight attendants wheeled elegant carts through cabins, presenting whole lobster tails split and filled with rich mixtures of cream, egg yolks, brandy, and Gruyere cheese, then broiled until golden. Airlines like Pan Am and TWA maintained galleys with proper broilers and trained crews in classical French techniques. Passengers dressed in their finest understood their ticket, purchased not just transportation, but a dining experience rivaling ground-level fine restaurants. The dish required precise timing, lobster shells arriving at perfect temperature as champagne poured into crystal flutes. What made this remarkable was the refusal to compromise on quality, despite cooking challenges in pressurized metal tubes racing through the stratosphere. Lobster thermidor vanished as deregulation slashed budgets, but those who tasted it remember when flying meant genuine elegance. Beef Wellington carried the weight of culinary ambition through first-class cabins during the golden age of commercial aviation. This dish demanded kitchen standards usually reserved for Michelin-starred establishments. Tender filet wrapped in mushroom duxelles and pâté, encased in golden puff pastry arriving perfectly flaky at passengers' tray tables. The logistics were staggering, requiring temperature-controlled preparation before boarding and precisely timed finishing in galley ovens. Airlines employed trained chefs who understood that pastry had to breathe correctly at altitude, where pressure changes affected texture and browning. Passengers sliced through buttery layers to reveal pink-centered beef surrounded by earthy mushroom filling. This dish represented absolute commitment to the idea that flying should elevate every aspect of life. Beef Wellington disappeared when accountants replaced culinary directors, leaving behind memories of when airlines believed passengers deserved genuine artistry. Carved roast beef trolley service transformed airplane cabins into floating dining rooms where passengers watched uniformed attendants slice prime cuts at their seats. Airlines invested in specialized carts with heated compartments and silver dome covers, revealing beautifully browned roasts beside Yorkshire pudding and horseradish sauce. The ritual began with attendants rolling the trolley down narrow aisles, asking each passenger their preferred thickness and doneness, then carving with precision learned through intensive training. The aroma of roasted beef filled the cabin, triggering appetites and conversations among strangers sharing an experience usually reserved for holiday gatherings. Some airlines featured standing rib roasts weighing 15 pounds or more, enough to serve an entire first-class section generously. The carving itself became theater, skilled hands working silver knives while passengers observed. This service vanished because airlines decided elaborate presentations cost more than accountants could justify. Duck à l'orange brought classical French cuisine to cruising altitude, demonstrating that airlines once considered culinary excellence a competitive advantage worth significant investment. The dish featured roasted duck with crispy skin, served in glossy orange sauce made from fresh citrus, Grand Marnier, and rich duck stock reduced until it coated each slice perfectly. Flight attendants presented the dish on warmed china plates, garnished with orange segments and fresh herbs stored in refrigerated compartments. The sweetness of the sauce balanced the rich, slightly gamey flavor of the duck in ways that surprised passengers accustomed to simpler fare. Airlines sourced ducks from specific farms. Understanding quality at this level required supply chain commitment extending far beyond the galley. Passengers eating duck à l'orange at altitude often remarked the meal surpassed hometown restaurants. This dish disappeared as carriers consolidated, leaving an era when flying meant experiencing cuisine that genuinely delighted. Chateaubriand for two represented the absolute pinnacle of airline romance, a dish designed specifically for couples celebrating special occasions at cruising altitude. Airlines offered this thick-cut center filet, carved tableside with bernaise sauce, to passengers who requested it through travel agents. The presentation required 2 flight attendants working in coordination, one carving while the other arranged vegetables and sauce on heated plates. Passengers watched as tenderloin was sliced into medallions, revealing perfectly pink centers contrasting with caramelized exterior. Some airlines included champagne service and fresh flowers, understanding that certain journeys deserved elevated celebration. The dish required advanced preparation beginning hours before departure, with timing calculated to ensure meat reached optimal temperature when passengers were ready. Chateaubriand vanished when airlines stopped believing in-flight dining could be genuinely special, replaced by packaged meals prioritizing convenience over ceremony. Whole roasted Cornish game hens arrived at passengers' tray tables as individual birds, a presentation that made economy class feel almost luxurious during the Golden Age. Each hen was roasted with herbs, butter, and citrus until skin turned golden and crispy, then served on oval plates with wild rice pilaf and glazed vegetables. The sight of a complete bird communicated abundance and care that packaged meals could never match. Airlines understood presentation mattered almost as much as taste, and serving whole birds sent a message that passengers were valued individuals rather than cargo. Preparation required coordination across multiple kitchens, with hens roasted to precise specifications before loading into temperature-controlled carriers. Passengers carved their own birds using silver cutlery provided, creating interactive dining encouraging slower, deliberate eating. This dish faded as airlines searched for efficiencies, replaced by pre-sliced proteins requiring neither carving skills nor individual attention. Shrimp cocktail service opened first-class meals with theatrical presentation that established expectations for everything following. Chilled jumbo shrimp arrived in silver bowls nested on crushed ice, accompanied by crystal vessels of house-made cocktail sauce spiked with fresh horseradish. The shrimp were sourced from Gulf waters and premium fisheries, selected for size and sweetness matching the elegance of service. Flight attendants presented each cocktail with practiced grace, placing linen napkins and explaining seafood provenance to curious passengers. The cold appetizer served practical purpose too, cleansing palates and building anticipation for hot courses that followed. Airlines maintained relationships with suppliers who understood in-flight seafood had to exceed typical restaurant standards because any failure occurred in a confined space. Shrimp cocktail disappeared during the 1980s deregulation, when appetizer courses became first casualties of cost reduction. Smoked salmon and caviar appetizers represented the most aspirational moments in commercial aviation, when airlines believed first-class passengers deserved embassy dinner ingredients. Thin slices of Scottish salmon were arranged on chilled plates beside dollops of beluga caviar, accompanied by minced egg, capers, and crème fraîche. The presentation required specialized training. Attendants handled mother-of-pearl spoons to prevent metallic flavors from corrupting delicate roe. Airlines maintained temperature-controlled storage for these ingredients. Understanding caviar required conditions regular refrigeration couldn't provide. Passengers experienced genuine luxury, connecting them to aristocratic traditions stretching back centuries. The combination of silky salmon and briny caviar created flavor complexity, reminding travelers they experienced something rare. This appetizer vanished as airlines calculated cost per gram of serving fish eggs at altitude, replacing luxury with marketing language describing cheaper alternatives. Flambéed cherries. Jubilee brought actual flames into airplane cabins during an era when safety regulations permitted theatrical dessert presentations at altitude. Flight attendants trained for tableside service would warm brandy in small pans, add dark sweet cherries, then ignite the alcohol while passengers watched blue flames dance over their dessert. The spectacle occurred mere feet from seated travelers, who gasped with delight as fire briefly illuminated the darkened cabin before subsiding into caramelized sauce. Airlines invested in specialized equipment and training programs, ensuring safety while preserving drama. The cherries were spooned over vanilla ice cream stored in proper freezers, creating temperature contrasts, heightening every sensation. Passengers photographed the flaming presentation when cameras required flashbulbs, capturing moments impossible by modern standards. Cherries' jubilee disappeared suddenly when regulations prohibited open flames in aircraft cabins, ending forever dessert service, including genuine fire. Steak Diane prepared tableside transformed first-class cabins into intimate dining rooms where passengers watched their main course assembled with theatrical precision. Flight attendants trained in classical techniques would pound beef medallions, then sauté them in butter with shallots, mushrooms, and a sauce of cognac, Worcestershire, and cream bubbling dramatically. The preparation occurred on specially designed carts with built-in burners producing restaurant-quality results. Passengers leaned in to observe each step, breathing aromas of seared beef and brandy as dinners came together. The sauce was finished with fresh cream in circular motions, demonstrating skill from weeks of training. Each steak Diane was unique, prepared for specific passengers rather than assembled on production lines. Airlines understood performance mattered as much as the meal, that watching skilled hands create dinner produced satisfaction beyond mere eating. This service vanished when carriers decided efficiency outweighed experience. Rack of lamb with mint jelly arrived at first-class seats as a complete presentation. Bones crossed elegantly, meat pink and glistening, accompanied by bright green jelly that passengers spooned alongside each bite. Airlines sourced lamb from New Zealand, selecting racks sized perfectly for individual service while maintaining visual impact. The preparation required precise roasting before departure, then careful reheating in galley ovens calibrated to preserve tenderness. Flight attendants carved portions tableside, separating chops with practiced movements while passengers anticipated that first bite combining rich lamb with cool, sweet mint. The dish represented an era when airlines understood presentation mattered, that crossed bones and garnished plates created experiences passengers remembered. Mint jelly was house-made by airline catering kitchens, its color contrasting against the lamb's caramelized exterior. This dish disappeared as carriers eliminated tableside carving, replacing theatrical service with pre-plated portions. Sole meunière demonstrated that airlines could execute delicate French fish preparations at 35,000 feet, requiring extraordinary coordination between ground kitchens and cabin crews. Fresh Dover sole was filleted, dredged lightly in flour, then pan-fried in clarified butter until golden, arriving at passenger seats in pools of brown butter with capers and lemon. The dish demanded precise timing. Overcooking destroyed the sole's delicate texture. Airlines trained crews to finish the sauce tableside, adding fresh lemon juice that sizzled against hot butter as passengers watched. The fish's mild sweetness paired perfectly with the nutty, acidic sauce, creating flavors that surprised those expecting institutional fare. Sourcing presented challenges, as sole had to be fresh enough to survive the journey from ocean to plate. Some carriers flew fish overnight for morning departures. Sole meunière vanished when airlines decided fresh fish presented too many logistical challenges, replacing it with frozen options. Fresh fruit and cheese trolley service transformed dessert courses into European-style rituals, where passengers selected from aged brie, wedges of Stilton, and ripe grapes rolling past their seats. Airlines curated selections featuring cheeses from France, England, and Switzerland, stored at proper temperatures in specialized compartments. Flight attendants learned cheese names and flavor profiles, advising passengers on pairings with port wine poured from crystal decanters. The trolleys featured marble surfaces, temperature control, and knife sets for proper cutting. Passengers pointed to their selections, watching as attendants carved portions and arranged them on small plates with crackers and fresh fruit. The ritual slowed the meal, encouraging conversation rather than rushed eating. This service represented airlines' belief that flying should include cultural education. Cheese trolleys disappeared when carriers calculated the cost of maintaining perishable inventories, replacing curated selections with wrapped, processed portions. Oysters Rockefeller brought New Orleans elegance to cruising altitude, each shell filled with spinach, herbs, and breadcrumbs before being broiled until bubbling and golden. Airlines sourced oysters from Gulf waters and Atlantic coasts, selecting specimens sized for elegant presentation on beds of rock salt. The topping, a blend varying by carrier, typically combined spinach, parsley, green onions, and pernod with butter and breadcrumbs forming a crispy crust. Passengers received plates of 6 oysters arranged in circles, accompanied by lemon wedges and mignonette sauce. The dish demonstrated extraordinary ambition, as fresh shellfish at altitude presented food safety challenges requiring constant temperature monitoring. Flight attendants explained proper eating technique to passengers unfamiliar with oyster forks. Oysters Rockefeller represented airline's willingness to serve dishes most ground restaurants considered too complicated. This appetizer vanished when carriers decided shellfish logistics presented unacceptable risks. Chicken Kiev arrived at passengers' tray tables as golden-crusted bundles hiding molten garlic butter that erupted dramatically when cut, a theatrical moment airlines designed for first-class impact. The dish required boneless chicken breasts pounded thin, wrapped around frozen compound butter seasoned with garlic and herbs, then breaded and fried until crisped. Timing was everything. Butter needed to melt during final heating but remained contained until the passenger's knife released it. Flight attendants warned first-time diners to cut carefully, preventing butter from spraying across white shirts and silk ties. The flavor combination, crispy coating, tender chicken, rich garlic butter, created satisfaction passengers rarely experience at altitude. Airlines employed specialized cooks who understood the physics of butter melting inside breaded pouches. Chicken Kiev disappeared when carriers eliminated fried foods from galleys, replaced by safer preparations lacking any element of delicious surprise. Prime rib with Yorkshire pudding brought British Sunday dinner traditions to transcontinental flights, complete with individual puddings puffed golden beside thick slices of rosy beef. Airlines maintained roasting schedules ensuring ribs reached optimal doneness before boarding, then held them at temperature in specialized warmers. The Yorkshire puddings, batter of eggs, flour, and beef drippings baked until dramatically risen, were prepared in ground kitchens, finished in galley ovens to restore crisp exteriors. Passengers selected their preferred doneness as flight attendants carved from the bone, arranging slices beside puddings and horseradish cream on warmed china. The combination of tender beef, crispy pudding, and sharp horseradish created authentic British comfort at altitude. Some airlines featured this as their signature Sunday service on transatlantic routes. Prime rib vanished when carriers eliminated onboard carving, replacing elaborate roasts with sliced beef lacking ceremony or genuine tenderness. Baked Alaska arrived at first-class tables as architectural desserts, domes of browned meringue hiding ice cream and sponge cake that seemed impossible to serve frozen at altitude. The preparation required ground kitchens to assemble desserts, freeze them solid, then apply meringue torch to golden peaks moments before boarding. Flight attendants retrieved individual portions from specialized freezers, presenting them to passengers whose expressions mixed disbelief with anticipation. Cutting through crispy meringue to reveal layers of ice cream and cake beneath created moments of pure joy. The contrast of temperatures and textures, warm exterior, frozen interior, soft cake, demonstrated airlines could achieve what seemed technically impossible. Some carriers flambéed the meringue tableside with brandy, adding theatrical flames to already dramatic presentations. Baked Alaska disappeared when airlines eliminated proper freezer capacity, leaving passengers with shelf-stable desserts inspiring nothing beyond resignation. Escargot in garlic butter brought French bistro traditions to cruising altitude, each snail nestled in ceramic dishes swimming in pools of parsley-flecked butter that passengers soaked up with crusty bread. Airlines sourced escargot from Burgundy producers who understood American carriers demanded premium quality matching Parisian restaurants. The preparation required cleaning, cooking, and returning snails to shells before filling cavities with compound butter rich with garlic, shallots, and fresh herbs. Flight attendants served dishes sizzling from galley ovens, accompanied by special forks and instructions for unfamiliar passengers. The aroma of garlic butter filled first-class cabins, creating sensory experiences that made fellow passengers envious. Bread for soaking was baked fresh before departure, its crusty exterior perfect for absorbing every drop. Escargot vanished when airlines decided specialty equipment and passenger education required too much investment. Filet mignon with bernaise sauce represented the most reliable luxury in first-class dining. thick-cut tenderloin cooked to order, accompanied by tarragon-scented emulsion defining classical French steakhouse cuisine. Airlines sourced beef from premium ranchers, aging steaks properly before portioning for individual service. The bernaise was prepared fresh in ground kitchens, maintained at precise temperatures to prevent breaking. Passengers specified preferred doneness to flight attendants who communicated with galley crews, ensuring steaks emerged exactly as requested. The combination of butter-tender beef and rich, herbaceous sauce created satisfaction justifying premium ticket prices. Some carriers offered accompaniments like asparagus hollandaise, elevating the experience further. Filet mignon disappeared when airlines switched to pre-cooked proteins, eliminating customization that once made in-flight dining personal. The béarnaise vanished too, replaced by shelf-stable sauces lacking fresh tarragon's character. Consommé royale opened first-class meals with clarified beef broth, so transparent passengers could read through it, garnished with delicate custard shapes floating like edible jewels. The preparation required hours of careful cooking, ground meat and egg whites attracting impurities as broth simmered, creating a raft carefully strained to produce crystal-clear liquid. Airlines maintained the consommé at serving temperature in specialized containers, ladling it into warmed cups as passengers settled into seats. The custard garnishes, cut into diamonds, stars, or crescents, were prepared separately, their pale yellow color contrasting against amber broth. Sipping consommé signaled that something special was about to happen, preparing palates for courses that followed. The flavor was intensely beefy yet completely refined, demonstrating culinary skill rarely associated with airplane food. Consommé vanished when airlines eliminated soup courses entirely, replacing elegant beginnings with packaged snacks. Veal Oscar combined tender veal medallions with crab meat, asparagus spears, and bernaise sauce in a dish so elaborate it seemed impossible for airplane galleys. Airlines sourced milk-fed veal from European farms, pounding cutlets thin before sautéing in clarified butter until golden. The crab meat was warmed gently and arranged atop each medallion beside blanched asparagus. Bernaise sauce was prepared fresh and kept warm in specialized containers. Flight attendants assembled plates tableside, layering components while passengers watched luxury materialize. The combination of delicate veal, sweet crab, and herbaceous sauce created complexity rivaling metropolitan restaurants. This dish represented airlines' willingness to tackle preparations most chefs considered risky. Veal Oscar disappeared when carriers decided sourcing and assembly logistics exceeded what deregulated budgets could sustain. Crêpes Suzette brought tableside flames to first-class dessert service. Orange-scented crêpes flambéed with Grand Marnier while passengers watched blue fire dance across plates. Flight attendants trained for this presentation would warm thin crêpes in butter and orange juice, then add liqueur and ignite with dramatic flourish. The flames subsided into caramelized sauce, coating each crêpe with bittersweet citrus flavor. Airlines invested in specialized pans and training to ensure safety while preserving theatrical experience. Passengers leaned back as attendants worked mere inches away, the smell of burnt orange filling the cabin. The dish required confidence and showmanship. Hesitation ruined the effect. Some carriers offered crêpes Suzette as signature conclusion to first-class meals, understanding that ending with fire created lasting memories. This dessert vanished when regulations prohibited open flames. Poached salmon with dill sauce arrived as whole portions of pink fish, flesh flaking perfectly under silver forks, accompanied by creamy sauce fragrant with fresh herbs. Airlines sourced Atlantic salmon from Scottish and Norwegian waters, poaching fillets in court bouillon seasoned with wine and aromatics. The dill sauce was prepared from fresh cream, egg yolks, and feathery dill fronds folded in just before serving. The combination of rich salmon with cool, herbaceous sauce created flavors sophisticated enough for diplomatic dinners. Flight attendants served each portion on chilled plates, understanding proper temperature mattered as much as preparation. Some carriers offered this as lighter alternative to beef-heavy menus. Poached salmon disappeared when airlines switched to pre-cooked fish reheated in plastic packaging, eliminating delicate texture that made fresh preparations memorable. Tournedos Rossini elevated in-flight dining to operatic heights, combining filet mignon with foie gras, black truffles, and Madeira sauce in a dish named for the famous Italian composer himself. Airlines sourced premium tenderloin from established beef suppliers, foie gras from renowned French producers, and truffles preserved carefully in their peak season for maximum flavor and aroma. The assembly required precision: beef cooked to exact doneness, foie gras seared quickly, truffles shaved thin, and Madeira sauce reduced until glossy and deeply rich. Flight attendants presented this dish with appropriate reverence, understanding they served something approaching culinary art. The flavors were decadent and deeply complex, making passengers forget they were in an airplane entirely. This represented peak airline ambition. Tournedos Rossini vanished when ingredient costs became impossible to justify. Vichyssoise demonstrated that cold soup could achieve elegance at cruising altitude, each cup of chilled potato leek puree topped with fresh chives and served in delicate china alongside silver spoons. The soup was prepared from butter-sweated leeks, potatoes simmered until soft, then pureed and enriched with cream until silky smooth. Proper chilling was essential. Soup had to be cold enough to refresh without numbing taste buds dulled by cabin pressure. Flight attendants ladled portions from insulated containers, adding chive garnishes tableside for visual appeal. The flavor was subtle and sophisticated, preparing palates for bolder courses that followed. Vichyssoise represented airlines' understanding that elegance sometimes meant restraint, that cool simplicity could impress as much as flaming theatrics. This soup disappeared when airlines eliminated first-course options entirely as costs rose. Stuffed quail arrived as individual birds, their small frames filled with wild rice, dried fruits, and fresh herbs before roasting until skin turned golden and crackling. Airlines sourced semi-boneless quail from specialty farms across the country, understanding tiny birds required careful preparation to prevent drying during flight. The stuffing balanced earthy rice with sweet currants and savory herbs, complementing the quail's delicate gamey flavor beautifully. Flight attendants served each bird on beds of wilted greens, explaining proper eating technique to unfamiliar passengers. The presentation made passengers feel special. Receiving entire birds communicated individual attention and care that portioned slices never could. This dish represented airlines' commitment to serving foods passengers rarely encountered. Stuffed quail vanished when carriers eliminated specialized preparations. Chocolate soufflé challenged the physics of airline food service, these delicate desserts rising perfectly in galley ovens before being rushed to passengers watching them slowly deflate with each passing second. The preparation required ground kitchens to prepare bases of chocolate, butter, and egg yolks, with stiffly beaten whites folded in carefully before baking. Flight attendants timed the bake precisely, pulling soufflés at peak rise and delivering them before inevitable collapse began. Passengers experienced perfect timing drama, receiving desserts at their most beautiful moment. Knowing any delay meant certain disappointment. The flavor combined intense chocolate with airy lightness, impossible to replicate otherwise. This represented airlines' willingness to attempt the technically impossible. Chocolate soufflé vanished when carriers decided timing risks exceeded acceptable standards. Waldorf salad trolley service transformed apples, celery, walnuts, and mayonnaise into a ritual of passenger choice and attendant skill at cruising altitude. Flight attendants wheeled polished carts featuring crisp apple varieties, celery hearts, toasted walnuts, and house-made dressing, assembling salads according to preferences expressed tableside. Some passengers wanted extra walnuts, while others preferred lighter dressing. The trolley accommodated every individual request. The salad, invented at New York's legendary Waldorf Astoria, carried associations with Grand Hotel dining that elevated the airplane experience significantly. Airlines understood that letting passengers customize salads created engagement beyond pre-plated alternatives. Trolley service slowed meals, encouraging relaxed pace distinguishing luxury travel. Waldorf trolleys disappeared when carriers eliminated tableside preparation. Coq au vin brought rustic French country cooking to first-class cabins. Chicken braised in red wine with mushrooms, pearl onions, and bacon, until meat fell from bones into rich, purple-tinged sauce. Airlines prepared this hearty dish in ground kitchens, allowing flavors to meld during slow cooking before portioning into individual casseroles reheated during flight. The sauce, reduced burgundy wine enriched with chicken stock and aromatics, coated each piece in glossy, deeply flavorful liquid. Pearl onions added sweetness while mushrooms contributed earthiness, and bacon provided smoky depth that lingered. Flight attendants served casseroles bubbling from galley ovens, filling cabins with aromas making economy passengers envious. Coq au vin represented airlines' ability to serve dishes requiring genuine time and technique. This dish disappeared when carriers eliminated braised preparations. Fresh-baked bread service filled first-class cabins with aromas transforming flying into something approaching home, rolls emerging warm from galley ovens throughout meal service. Airlines equipped galleys with specialized ovens finishing par-baked rolls to golden perfection, timing batches so passengers received warm bread with each course. The rolls were prepared by catering kitchens using guarded recipes, some featuring herbs, others enriched with butter, all designed to emerge fragrant and soft. Flight attendants circulated with linen-lined baskets, offering seconds and thirds to passengers who couldn't resist the temptation. Warm bread signaled care and hospitality, making passengers feel genuinely valued. This service represented airlines' understanding that small touches created lasting impressions. Fresh bread disappeared when carriers calculated baking costs exceeded appreciation. Chateaubriand for two represented the absolute pinnacle of airline romance, a dish designed specifically for couples celebrating special occasions at cruising altitude. Airlines offered this thick-cut center filet, carved tableside with bernaise sauce, to passengers who requested it through travel agents. The presentation required two flight attendants working in coordination, one carving while the other arranged vegetables and sauce on heated plates. Passengers watched as tenderloin was sliced into medallions, revealing perfectly pink centers contrasting with caramelized exterior. Some airlines included champagne service and fresh flowers, understanding that certain journeys deserved elevated celebration. The dish required advanced preparation beginning hours before departure, with timing calculated to ensure meat reached optimal temperature when passengers were ready. Chateaubriand vanished when airlines stopped believing in-flight dining could be genuinely special, replaced by packaged meals prioritizing convenience over ceremony. Decades ago, passengers didn't settle for plastic-wrapped snacks or uninspired reheated pasta. Instead, they were served well-crafted dishes that could hold their own in a fine restaurant. Among them was crab cakes with remoulade, a dish that balanced delicacy with boldness. Lightly seasoned crab was formed into golden brown patties, crisp on the outside and tender within, accompanied by a tangy, creamy remoulade that provided just the right amount of zest. It was seafood at its best, simple, elegant, and undeniably indulgent. But while the food was refined, altitude always posed a challenge. At cruising height, taste perception is dulled by dry cabin air and pressurization, making flavors seem muted. That's where remoulade came in. The punchy mix of mustard, capers, and spices counteracted the loss of flavor, ensuring that crab cakes still delivered their signature contrast of richness and zest. Yet, as the airline industry evolved, meals like this became a casualty of cost-cutting. By the 1980s, efficiency overtook elegance, and hand-formed crab cakes were replaced with mass-produced, pre-packaged alternatives. Okay, let's take a quick detour to the world of luxury. If you were born between 1988 and 1990, consider yourself royalty because if you were lucky enough to fly on the Concorde, you were in for a treat. Forget about economy meals. This was fine dining at 35,000 feet. Caviar, champagne, and a menu that would rival a Michelin-starred restaurant. But let's be real. Most of us were stuck in coach. While the rest of the airline industry was struggling to survive, the Concorde offered a glimpse into the future of air travel. This supersonic jet was a symbol of luxury and exclusivity. Passengers who could afford the exorbitant ticket price were treated to an unparalleled level of service. The Concorde's in-flight dining experience was legendary. The menu was carefully curated by world-renowned chefs, and the presentation was impeccable. Passengers could enjoy a multi-course meal with fine wines and champagne. It was a far cry from the economy meals being served on other airlines. But here's the crazy part, of course. All this luxury came at a high cost. According to Condé Nast Traveler, a transatlantic ticket price set you back about $12,000, and the hefty airfare gained you entrance to an exclusive club frequented by the likes of Sting, Bruce Springsteen, and flocks of supermodels. There's no denying that it was heavy on the wallet, which means the Concorde was a commercial failure, and it was retired in 2003. For most people, the experience of flying on this iconic aircraft remains a dream. Beef Wellington carried the weight of culinary ambition through first-class cabins during the golden age of commercial aviation. This dish demanded kitchen standards usually reserved for Michelin-starred establishments. Tender filet wrapped in mushroom duxelles and pâté encased in golden puff pastry arriving perfectly flaky at passengers' tray tables. The logistics were staggering, requiring temperature-controlled preparation before boarding and precisely timed finishing in galley ovens. Airlines employed trained chefs who understood that pastry had to breathe correctly at altitude, where pressure changes affected texture and browning. Passengers sliced through buttery layers to reveal pink-centered beef surrounded by earthy mushroom filling. This dish represented absolute commitment to the idea that flying should elevate every aspect of life. Beef Wellington disappeared when accountants replaced culinary directors, leaving behind memories of when airlines believed passengers deserved genuine artistry. There was a time when ordering steak on an airplane didn't mean bracing yourself for disappointment. During the golden age of flying, first-class passengers dined on filet mignon with béarnaise sauce, a dish that epitomized luxury. The steak, tender, perfectly seared, and cooked to order, was paired with a rich, velvety béarnaise, a French sauce infused with butter, egg yolks, tarragon, and shallots. It was an undeniably elegant offering, though perhaps less surprising than the lobster and caviar that often shared space on the menu. But even if filet mignon was expected in high-end dining, the fact that it was served mid-flight made it remarkable. Every detail of the meal was designed to impress. Airlines took great care to present dishes on fine china with polished silverware and sometimes even tableside service. Flight attendants carefully arranged the setting, ensuring that dining in the sky felt as refined as dining in a top-tier steakhouse. But steak service at 500 miles per hour didn't last forever. As airlines transitioned from luxury to efficiency, complex meals like filet mignon with béarnaise sauce disappeared. Cooking steak to perfection on board wasn't cost-effective, and soon the days of slicing into a perfectly cooked filet in first class were gone. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, the golden age of airline food was coming to an end. According to Travel Plus Leisure, the division between first class and economy didn't exist until the 1970s. Before then, most airlines offered the same meals to all passengers, and food was served off trolleys onto china plates. To keep up with the demand for air travel, airlines began selling lower-priced tickets, thus creating economy. And that's on social stratification. As the cost of fuel soared, so did the price of a plane ticket. To cut costs, airlines started to downsize their meals. Enter the era of the economy meal. Think tiny sandwiches, rubbery chicken, and questionable side salads. It was the beginning of the end for gourmet dining in the sky. From 1978 to 1982, airplane food started changing shape. From luxurious meals to economy meals, let's just say we came a long way, or flew a long way. The late 1970s marked a turning point for the airline industry. Deregulation led to increased competition, which forced airlines to find ways to reduce costs. With the rise of budget travel, airlines began to focus on catering to the needs of the mass market. As a result, the quality of in-flight meals declined. The focus shifted from gourmet dining to providing basic sustenance, smaller portions, less variety, low quality, the whole shebang. The days of fine china and silver cutlery were over. Instead, passengers were served their meals on plastic trays. Now, it was quite the downfall, going from French cuisine to biscuits and curry, but it was still a welcome addition to the flying experience. For many passengers, the opportunity to eat a hot meal at 30,000 feet was a luxury in itself. And let's face it, it was better than surviving on peanuts and pretzels. Airline food once had a reputation for being as refined as a meal in a Parisian bistro. Passengers in first class weren't handed pre-packaged entrees. They were served multi-course meals that often featured slow-cooked delicacies. One of the most indulgent offerings was braised beef cheeks in red wine reduction, a dish that took an overlooked cut of meat and transformed it into something extraordinary. The beef, rich in collagen, was simmered for hours in a luxurious sauce made from red wine, shallots, and herbs, resulting in fork-tender perfection. The kind of dish you wouldn't expect to find on a plane, unless, of course, you were flying during the golden age of travel. Flight attendants, trained in the art of hospitality, presented each course with care, because a meal like this deserved more than a plastic fork and a cramped tray table. Inside a pressurized cabin, flavors became muted, making subtle dishes taste bland. That's why airline chefs relied on techniques that intensified flavors. Braised beef cheeks, slow-cooked in a bold red wine sauce, delivered deep, concentrated richness that held up against the dulling effects of high-altitude dining. Carved roast beef trolley service transformed airplane cabins into floating dining rooms where passengers watched uniformed attendants slice prime cuts at their seats. Airlines invested in specialized carts with heated compartments and silver dome covers, revealing beautifully browned roasts beside Yorkshire pudding and horseradish sauce. The ritual began with attendants rolling the trolley down narrow aisles, asking each passenger their preferred thickness and doneness, then carving with precision learned through intensive training. The aroma of roasted beef filled the cabin, triggering appetites and conversations among strangers sharing an experience usually reserved for holiday gatherings. Some airlines featured standing rib roasts weighing 15 pounds or more, enough to serve an entire first-class section generously. The carving itself became theater, skilled hands working silver knives while passengers observed. This service vanished because airlines decided elaborate presentations cost more than accountants could justify. The 70s were a decade of excess, and airline food was no exception. Think rich, creamy sauces, lots of cheese, and a heavy emphasis on meat. We're talking about beef stroganoff, chicken kiev, and other calorie-packed delights. It was a time when health-conscious eating was about as popular as disco pants, but hey, at least the food was filling. According to Reader's Digest, United Airlines created the first kitchen devoted to developing airline cuisine that took into account the changes in taste buds and sense of smell at high altitudes. United hired French chef Raymond Oliver in 1973 to improve its passenger meals, and he figured out that anything tasted good at 30,000 feet when it's drenched in butter, cream, or salt. Former Pan Am stewardess Anne Sweeney recalled that she heated vegetables and meat in the galley, and there was always a rich sauce. As airlines grew more competitive, high-end items would appear on many of their menus. These included dishes such as seafood Newburg, boeuf bourguignon, pheasant in sour cream, and lobster à l'américaine. The 70s was a time of economic growth and a growing middle class. This increased disposable income led to a desire for indulgence and luxury. Airline food reflected this trend with rich, decadent dishes that were designed to impress. The focus was on comfort food with a gourmet twist. These dishes were often served with a side of buttery mashed potatoes or a generous helping of pasta. While the food might have been delicious, it wasn't exactly healthy. The emphasis on rich sauces and heavy cream meant that these meals were high in calories and fat. But for many passengers, indulging in a hearty meal was part of the flying experience. If you're a health freak, you would have survived the 70s because they had some healthy options like salads and seafood on board too, as long as you didn't pair them with the fatty sauces. Air travel once had a flair for the extravagant, and that extended to the menu. Among the more refined offerings was Oysters Provençal, a dish that set itself apart from the traditional raw or Rockefeller-style preparations. Instead of heavy cream or breadcrumbs, these oysters were bathed in a light, aromatic sauce of tomatoes, garlic, and fresh herbs, giving passengers a taste of the French countryside at 30,000 feet. It was delicate yet flavorful, proving that even the most luxurious ingredients could be served with a fresh Mediterranean touch. First-class passengers expected more, and airlines delivered, ensuring that a meal in the sky felt like an event, not an obligation. The real challenge, however, wasn't the presentation. It was altitude. But Oysters Provençal, with its bright acidity from tomatoes and punch of garlic, held up well. It provided a burst of flavor when many other dishes faded into the background. But times changed. As airlines prioritized efficiency over elegance, labor-intensive dishes disappeared. Oysters, once a symbol of luxury, gave way to pre-packaged snacks and uninspired entrees. The days of savoring fresh seafood in the sky became a memory. Whole roasted Cornish game hens arrived at passengers' tray tables as individual birds, a presentation that made economy class feel almost luxurious during the Golden Age. Each hen was roasted with herbs, butter, and citrus until skin turned golden and crispy, then served on oval plates with wild rice pilaf and glazed vegetables. The sight of a complete bird communicated abundance and care that packaged meals could never match. Airlines understood presentation mattered almost as much as taste, and serving whole birds sent a message that passengers were valued individuals rather than cargo. Preparation required coordination across multiple kitchens, with hens roasted to precise specifications before loading into temperature-controlled carriers. Passengers carved their own birds using silver cutlery provided, creating interactive dining encouraging slower, deliberate eating. This dish faded as airlines searched for efficiencies, replaced by pre-sliced proteins requiring neither carving skills nor individual attention. Let's start with the golden age of air travel, the early 1960s. If you were born between 1963 and 1966, you missed out on the heyday of jet travel, but your parents probably enjoyed a taste of luxury in the sky. Imagine this: fine china, crystal glasses, and a menu curated by a French chef. Yes, folks, airplane food was once considered a gourmet experience. The post-war era was a time of economic boom and increased leisure travel. As air travel became more accessible to the middle class, airlines sought to differentiate themselves by offering a superior in-flight dining experience. What's not to love about a five-star meal in the air? French cuisine, with its reputation for elegance and sophistication, was the perfect fit. Passengers could expect dishes like delicate mousseline de sole, tender filet mignon, and rich sauces. Now that sounds like a luxury compared to the omelets we get in the economy today. Back in the 60s, the focus was on quality ingredients and classic French techniques. It was a time when flying was synonymous with luxury, and the dining experience was a crucial part of that. It was the era of white tablecloths and impeccable service. But let's be honest, who needs all that fancy stuff when you can have a good old-fashioned burger? While the French culinary influence dominated the skies, it's important to remember that not everyone was a fan of haute cuisine at 30,000 feet. Yeah, some of us here have a light stomach that becomes super delicate during those hefty travel days. Flambéed cherries. Jubilee brought actual flames into airplane cabins during an era when safety regulations permitted theatrical dessert presentations at altitude. Flight attendants trained for tableside service would warm brandy in small pans, add dark sweet cherries, then ignite the alcohol while passengers watched blue flames dance over their dessert. The spectacle occurred mere feet from seated travelers, who gasped with delight as fire briefly illuminated the darkened cabin before subsiding into caramelized sauce. Airlines invested in specialized equipment and training programs, ensuring safety while preserving drama. The cherries were spooned over vanilla ice cream stored in proper freezers, creating temperature contrasts, heightening every sensation. Passengers photographed the flaming presentation when cameras required flashbulbs, capturing moments impossible by modern standards. The 90s brought about a new era of airline branding. Airlines started to focus on creating a friendly atmosphere, and what better way to show passengers you care than by offering them a decent meal? While it wasn't gourmet, it was definitely an improvement over the previous decade. Think chicken or pasta, with a side of questionable vegetables. It was edible at least. The early 90s marked a shift in the airline industry's focus. With increased competition, airlines realized the importance of customer satisfaction. To create a more positive passenger experience, many airlines introduced new branding campaigns and marketing strategies. In 1991, United Airlines aimed at getting more families to travel by teaming up with McDonald's to create a version of the Happy Meal. What screams friendly more than a side of fries and a good old cheeseburger? Oh, and how can we forget the sacred Happy Meal toy? Advertisements for the Friendly Skies meal called back to the famous 1965 slogan, "Fly the Friendly Skies." The meal included a cheeseburger, cookies, and a toy, although later carrot sticks, fruit, and non-fat milk were added. All good things come to an end, and so did this Happy Meal in the sky. Airlines competed not just on speed and service, but on luxury, and that extended all the way to the food. Nothing exemplified this better than caviar on toast points, a dish so effortlessly elegant that it needed no embellishment. The crisp, golden triangles of toast provided the perfect base for delicate pearls of caviar, often served with a side of crème fraîche or finely chopped egg. It was understated, refined, and unmistakably indulgent. First-class passengers were treated to a full dining experience, with flight attendants rolling out carts laden with silver dishes and fine china. A serving of caviar mid-flight reinforced the idea that flying was a privilege, not just a means of transportation. Of course, altitude always played its tricks. Pressurized cabins dulled taste perception, which meant that subtle flavors often lost their impact. Caviar, however, had a natural advantage. Its briny richness and delicate pop of texture held up well even at air, making it a perfect fit for in-flight dining. By the late 20th century, airlines began focusing on cost-cutting rather than extravagance. Lavish dishes like caviar on toast points vanished, replaced by mass-produced meals designed for efficiency rather than elegance. Smoked salmon and caviar appetizers represented the most aspirational moments in commercial aviation, when airlines believed first-class passengers deserved embassy dinner ingredients. Thin slices of Scottish salmon were arranged on chilled plates beside dollops of beluga caviar, accompanied by minced egg, capers, and crème fraîche. The presentation required specialized training. Attendants handled mother-of-pearl spoons to prevent metallic flavors from corrupting delicate roe. Airlines maintained temperature-controlled storage for these ingredients. Understanding caviar required conditions regular refrigeration couldn't provide. Passengers experienced genuine luxury, connecting them to aristocratic traditions stretching back centuries. The combination of silky salmon and briny caviar created flavor complexity, reminding travelers they experienced something rare. This appetizer vanished as airlines calculated cost per gram of serving fish eggs at altitude, replacing luxury with marketing language describing cheaper alternatives. First-class passengers weren't handed a microwave tray and told to make the best of it. They were served elegant, restaurant-quality dishes, thoughtfully prepared and beautifully presented. One such dish was chicken fricassee with tarragon, a refined take on a classic comfort meal. Unlike the heavy, cream-laden versions found in home kitchens, this airline adaptation relied on a lighter, velvety sauce infused with tarragon, a herb known for its distinct, slightly anise-like flavor. It was a small but meaningful upgrade, turning a familiar dish into something truly sophisticated. The presentation mattered just as much as the preparation. A proper meal, after all, deserved a proper setting. There were no disposable trays or shrink-wrapped entrees. Instead, flight attendants, trained in more than just safety procedures, ensured that dining at 30,000 feet felt like a five-star experience. Of course, meals like this eventually disappeared. As airlines shifted from luxury to efficiency, labor-intensive recipes were the first to go. Chicken fricassee with tarragon belonged to an era when air travel was as much about the experience as the destination. Today, the idea of enjoying a dish this refined on a flight seems almost unthinkable. If you were born between 1983 and 1987, you might remember a time when the height of airline luxury was a single olive on a plastic tray. Yes, you heard that right. One olive. It was a dark time for airplane food. Okay, before you start raising eyebrows, no, this era wasn't about serving a single olive on a tray, because that's just downright bizarre. Instead, airlines decided to cut costs by removing a single olive from each plastic tray on the Big Bird. Where did that come from? Well, American Airlines was in murky financial waters, and the airline's president, Robert Crandall, was scouring onboard flight service for ways to cut back. He landed on the idea of removing a single olive from every salad plate, which would save the airline $40,000 annually. And guess what? It worked. No one noticed that the poor olive was gone, but this was the start of airlines taking items off the menu without anyone noticing. Lobster thermidor was once the crown jewel of first-class airline dining, representing an era when carriers competed fiercely to offer luxury at 35,000 feet. Flight attendants wheeled elegant carts through cabins, presenting whole lobster tails split and filled with rich mixtures of cream, egg yolks, brandy, and Gruyere cheese, then broiled until golden. Airlines like Pan Am and TWA maintained galleys with proper broilers and trained crews in classical French techniques. Passengers dressed in their finest understood their ticket, purchased not just transportation, but a dining experience rivaling ground-level fine restaurants. The dish required precise timing, lobster shells arriving at perfect temperature as champagne poured into crystal flutes. What made this remarkable was the refusal to compromise on quality, despite cooking challenges in pressurized metal tubes racing through the stratosphere. Lobster thermidor vanished as deregulation slashed budgets, but those who tasted it remember when flying meant genuine elegance. The late 60s brought a new era of experimentation to airline food. It was all about themes. One flight, you could be dining in Italy. The next, you were transported to the heart of Mexico. Remember those tiny plastic sombreros and maracas? Yeah, that was a thing. The swinging 60s was a decade of social change, and the airline industry was no exception. As air travel became more accessible, airlines began to focus on creating a more vibrant and exciting passenger experience. Themed dining was a way to add a touch of fun and adventure to the journey. Think spaghetti and meatballs served in a red and white checkered bowl, or tacos and enchiladas with a side of guacamole. It's like your foreign vacation started before you even landed in the land. Craving Italian? Your airlines had you covered. One of the best themed cuisines was served by Trans World Airlines. Yeah, the storied and glamorous airline preferred by celebrities and the international jet set. The menu featured offerings from the serving wench and the groaning table. Passengers could dine on deviled lobster, beef brisket with horseradish sauce, broiled lamb chops, or Dover sole, all washed down with glasses of ale or beer. To top off this Epicurean meal, you could enjoy a jigger of drambuie, the Scotch and honey blend created for Bonnie Prince Charlie in the 18th century. While the food might not have been authentic, it was certainly adventurous. And let's not forget the psychedelic color schemes of the airline interiors. It was a wild time to be a passenger. Seafood aspic was one of the more unusual dishes to grace the airline menus of the 1950s and 60s, a shimmering, molded masterpiece of shrimp, crab, and sometimes lobster, all delicately suspended in a gelatinous broth. If it sounds extravagant, that's because it was. Today, the thought of eating cold, seafood-infused gelatin on a plane might raise some eyebrows. But back then, it was a dish of sophistication, crafted to impress a clientele accustomed to dining in style. Presentation was everything. Meals were plated with precision on real porcelain, carried out by uniformed flight attendants trained in hospitality as much as safety. First-class service meant white linen napkins, silver cutlery, and a touch of European flair, ensuring passengers felt they were in a flying restaurant rather than a cramped metal tube hurtling through the sky. Taste, however, was a challenge. At high altitudes, pressurized cabins dulled the senses, making food seem bland. Airlines compensated by adding more salt and seasoning than they would on the ground. Seafood aspic, with its concentrated flavors and savory gelatin base, held up surprisingly well, delivering a bold, briny bite when other dishes struggled to make an impression. Duck à l'orange brought classical French cuisine to cruising altitude, demonstrating that airlines once considered culinary excellence a competitive advantage worth significant investment. The dish featured roasted duck with crispy skin, served in glossy orange sauce made from fresh citrus, Grand Marnier, and rich duck stock reduced until it coated each slice perfectly. Flight attendants presented the dish on warmed china plates, garnished with orange segments and fresh herbs stored in refrigerated compartments. The sweetness of the sauce balanced the rich, slightly gamey flavor of the duck in ways that surprised passengers accustomed to simpler fare. Airlines sourced ducks from specific farms. Understanding quality at this level required supply chain commitment extending far beyond the galley. Passengers eating duck à l'orange at altitude often remarked the meal surpassed hometown restaurants. This dish disappeared as carriers consolidated, leaving an era when flying meant experiencing cuisine that genuinely delighted. And then there was 1977, the year Star Wars took the world by storm, and a policy enacted by Southwest Airlines was the beginning of the end of gourmet meals. The year airplane food took a drastic turn. Peanuts. Everywhere. It was the year of the peanut. Whether you loved them or hated them, there was no escaping them. And let's be honest, it was probably a cheaper option for the airlines. The 1970s were a decade of economic challenges, including rising fuel costs. Airlines were looking for ways to cut costs without sacrificing passenger satisfaction too much. Enter the peanut. Cheap, versatile, and with a long shelf life, peanuts were the perfect solution. Airlines began offering peanuts as a complimentary snack to passengers. It was a simple, no-frills approach to in-flight dining. While some passengers were disappointed with the lack of substantial food, others welcomed the change. Peanuts were a familiar and comforting snack, and they helped to fill the void left by the decline of full meals. Consequently, more airlines stayed competitive by cutting out the caviar and passing out baskets of peanuts instead, which stayed on Southwest's menu until 2018, when peanut allergies forced the airline to switch to other snacks. Of course, not everyone was a fan of peanuts. Allergies were becoming a more recognized issue, and some passengers had dietary restrictions. However, for the most part, peanuts were a successful cost-cutting measure for airlines. And let's face it, they're not half bad when you're bored and stuck in a metal tube at 30,000 feet. Shrimp cocktail service opened first-class meals with theatrical presentation that established expectations for everything following. Chilled jumbo shrimp arrived in silver bowls nested on crushed ice, accompanied by crystal vessels of house-made cocktail sauce spiked with fresh horseradish. The shrimp were sourced from Gulf waters and premium fisheries, selected for size and sweetness matching the elegance of service. Flight attendants presented each cocktail with practiced grace, placing linen napkins and explaining seafood provenance to curious passengers. The cold appetizer served practical purpose too, cleansing palates and building anticipation for hot courses that followed. Airlines maintained relationships with suppliers who understood in-flight seafood had to exceed typical restaurant standards because any failure occurred in a confined space. Shrimp cocktail disappeared during the 1980s deregulation, when appetizer courses became first casualties of cost reduction. Which vanished airline meal would you bring back for one more flight? Drop your memory in the comments, hit like, and subscribe for more forgotten flavors from aviation's golden age.